Welcome to The Thriving Mama, the podcast that teaches you not just how to survive, but to thrive in motherhood. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Davis. The pandemic shined a massive spotlight on our need for community since we were all essentially forced to be isolated for varying amounts of time depending upon where you were in the world. And we all saw what came of that. Increased rates of anxiety and depression and mood disorders and suicide. As humans, historically, we lived in tribal communities with a vast support network. Community and connection are essential to our very existence. But in our modern society, with all of the technology, we're increasingly separated, especially busy moms. This is compounded by the fact that many of us moms are living in places that we didn't grow up in, or we don't have close family or friends or just a lot of connection around us. So just how important is social connection and community? I did a PubMed search on it and found over 9,000 papers. That's pretty significant. It's my pleasure to introduce Cara Kelley, the guiding force behind the Kelley Effect in Raw Entrepreneurs. Hailing from Australia and exploring the world, Cara discovered her passion for fostering connections in a fragmented society. With a background in education, she specializes in leadership development, creating thriving communities of female entrepreneurs, and delivering impactful speeches at global empowerment conferences. Through the Kelley Effect and Raw Entrepreneurs, she empowers individuals to find belonging and purpose, making her a beacon of support in an interconnected yet often isolating world. Cara faced the challenges of isolation as an entrepreneur in a foreign country, sparking the realization the world needs genuine connections. So excited to have Cara here today. In this episode, she's going to dive into the best ways to connect and make friends as a mom, the value of taking off the masks and being authentic and vulnerable in new situations, the pros and cons of technology when developing relationships, and the health benefits of community. I've launched this podcast to share my knowledge and experience, but I know that real change comes from action and not just information. For personalized guidance, I'm offering podcast listeners a free 20-minute Thriving Mama Glow assessment call. We'll evaluate your situation, and even if I'm not the right fit for you, I'll provide you with useful information and resources to help support you on your journey. You'll find the link in the show notes. All right, so I'm welcoming Cara Kelley to the show, Cara Kelley of the Kelley Method. And before we get started, I just want to share a little quick snippet on how we met. So one day I was on my phone and I was looking at Facebook and I came across an invitation for a meetup, and it was for her Raw Entrepreneurs, which Raw stands for Real Authentic Women Entrepreneur Group. And I was like, I've been feeling so just isolated and stressed and feeling like I needed community. So I decided to go. And it was one of the best things that I've done in the last several months. I have met an amazing community of women, and Cara is absolutely incredible. And I'm so incredibly grateful for her. So, and Cara, I'm so grateful for having you on today. I'm really excited to dive into social connection and community with you.
Thank you so much. It's crazy. I feel like I've known you forever, and it's just so beautiful. And I'm so grateful that we met, and I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Yeah, I agree. I feel like we've known each other forever too. It was like very, very quick friends, which I love. Okay. So I am going to dive into our first question. So the first one I was going to ask was, if a mom has been feeling isolated or lacking support, what are the first steps that you would recommend she take to find her community? Because you and I both know it's not always easy as an adult.
Yeah, no, this is something I very much understand and have experienced. And it's been a challenge that I've been faced with as not only a mom, but as an entrepreneur, as someone that's a foreigner living in another country. Isolation has been something I've very much struggled with. And I think, the first step is kind of allowing yourself to go through the grief, because I think we all, when we become a mom, we assume that we're going to have this community and we're going to have people that just rally around us. And when it doesn't happen the way we think it would happen, there's almost this, there's a grief that occurs, and like there can be frustration and just feeling like, why, and you see other people potentially that have it, and, why don't I have it? And so just allowing yourself to feel all those feelings, and that's very valid that you feel that way, and really releasing that first. Then the second step I would say is you have to be proactive. It's your community is very rarely going to just fall upon your lap. You do have to do some seeking. And the first step in that, this one big tip for you is get really clear on the kinds of people that you want in your community. Right? Because it's easy to say, oh, I want other mums, or I just want community. I just want people. But what does that mean? There's a lot of mums out there. There's a lot of people out there that I guarantee you, you don't want in your world.
Right. So, right.
Like getting really clear on what kinds of people, are there certain hobbies, interests that you have that you want like-minded people that you want to hang around, right? And so really getting clear on that, write it down. Like, do you want other mums or families that like to do outdoor activities, or, are they people that speak different languages? I don't know, whatever it is for you. For me, a big part of what I wanted was other entrepreneurial women, right? Like, so just get really clear, and you might have different groups that serve different needs that you have and desires. So just get really clear on what you want. And then, the proactive part is, personally, I use social media. I think social media is a very powerful tool. It's not perfect. And yes, there's a lot of nonsense on social media, but it's a great tool. If you use it for what you desire, like going into different groups, whether it's mothers groups, or whether it's like, if, for example, I'm in a lot of crunchy mum groups, right?
Yep. Me too.
Right. And so like that would be a group, because that's someone that I feel like would be like-minded. I could go in there and say, I'm looking for other, moms that live in, the Monument area or wherever you're located, post a photo. But even right in there, this is a little bit about me, and I'm looking for mums that are similar. Because otherwise, if you just go into a group and post, hi, I'm looking for mums that live in Monument, you are going to get 100 women respond potentially. And then it's overwhelming, and you might be crippled by that and then never do anything. Right. And so that's one part is, getting it out there. But then the last step is you have to take action on it, which can be the scariest part, and that's, I think, with everything, when you have a desire and there's a need that you would like to have met, you've got to take action, and just remember that no one's coming to save you. Right. And that's hard to say, and that's hard to swallow, but it's also like, okay, if you want community, then just do something about it. Like, even if it is, hey, I'm going to this coffee shop at this time. Are there some other mums that would like to come that are, that meet, whatever, that are the kinds of people that you want to be around, and just start taking action on it. And you'll find, even if it's one person shows up, that connection will lead to something else. And, it also is pushing your comfort zone. So you have to get uncomfortable, have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
With everything in life, if you want something or if you want to grow, you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is so huge. And you bring up so many good points. I feel like really for me, it was, the pandemic, it stalled everything. And then getting out afterwards, it was so hard. So I made like last year, my year of like connecting again, reaching out to my friends, reaching out to people. And I started rebuilding my community, but I still, like, your group was a huge piece of the puzzle for me, because I'm part of some, like you said, crunchy mom groups. I have, a hiking group. I love that we have Raw too, so that we can connect as female entrepreneurs, because that's a different level. And I'm in some mom groups, but one of the reasons I decided to start the Thrive Mama Tribe was for this very reason, a place for moms to have safe community, but also, get the benefits of like the health information and the social aspect, all of the things, not just, the one aspect. So I completely get that. So you had mentioned social media. And so that makes me want to ask you a question, because I feel like technology can be a double-edged sword. social platforms like, Zoom and Facebook and Instagram and all of them allow us to connect to people around the globe, but not in person. So why do you feel like connecting in person is essential to have that true sense of community and a support system? Because sometimes I feel like social media can give you that false sense of community.
I 100% agree with you. It is a double-edged sword because I'm so grateful for social media and technology. Like, it's allowed me to stay connected to family and friends across the other side of the world, And I heard some research once. This lady's name is Milo Wilkinson. She's an Australian lady, and I saw her speak in New Zealand, and she was talking about how, and I'm not gonna do this justice, but it's about how your brain can't comprehend when you're seeing multiple people on a screen. Like, let's say a Zoom call. If it's a group Zoom call, it forces parts of your brain to switch off and almost go into like fight or flight.
Interesting.
And I was like, wow, I didn't know that, but it makes sense. So although, yes, social media and technology can be really powerful, I do think you have to balance it out. And that was why, so last year, when I found myself completely burnt out, I felt totally isolated and overwhelmed. I had been running programs online. I had been running, I had phenomenal groups of women that were coming together, but I was still feeling like that connection piece wasn't being fulfilled. Had some connection, but there is something about and I say this even when I do corporate trainings, there's one thing to sit on a screen and be able to see each other and talk and collaborate, but it's those side conversations, a lot of those little in the moment conversations that occur that are the most powerful. They're the ones that it's not prompted. It's not that it just is a really organic and natural progression when you're there in person that you can have, whereas if you think something and you're on a computer screen, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to wait until, maybe afterwards. And then usually we get so busy, we forget, and it just doesn't, it's not the same. So that in person, and human touch is so important as well. There's something about that you cannot get that on a screen. But I don't know what exactly it is, but there's something really special about being in person and really connecting with people. And I mean, just on a more basic level, you've seen through Raw, some of the activities that we do, you just can't do it online. We did a team building activity with newspaper. You can't do that online. There's a lot of stuff you can do online, but I think a lot of people through COVID, again, I think COVID was a blessing and a curse because I think it forced a lot of us to, use technology in a much more effective way. And I think that, again, there's some great aspects of technology but it is a tool.
Yes.
Right? It's a tool. It is not the answer. It is not everything. And you can never replace true human connection. And that's what I think, COVID also showed us that, yeah, we can do all this online, but we're seeing rates of depression skyrocket, rates of suicide skyrocket, right? We are human. We need to be in the flesh with other humans.
Yeah, I know,
that's just,
right?
I think point blank, that's just the main thing about it.
Yeah, it would be really easy for all of us to stay at home and stay, with our phones and our computers and do that. But then we're really lacking. You really are doing yourself a disservice in that type of situation because we really do need the human connection. And I think a lot of it also speaks to, it's like energy. Within every human being, we have, we emit electrical signals. And especially when we're feeling connected and love and we're releasing all those hormones like oxytocin that are, the bonding hormones. And so, when you're with other people, that influences your heart rate, your stress, how you're feeling. There's so many positive benefits to that. That can't be replaced and it can't be replicated with a screen.
Exactly.
Alrighty. So let's talk about, we'll kind of piggyback on what we were just talking about. And research tells us that community and authentic social interactions are a crucial piece of the longevity puzzle. Have you seen this play out in your work at all?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting topic. And I remember when I first heard this, it kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, that is so true. And I think I mean, just to come back to COVID, I think we saw that how many people, either like especially elderly people, deteriorated or passed away during COVID because they were no longer getting that like in-person connection, and they didn't have family members and children around. And like that is vital to keeping people alive. And it's wild to think about. And, you know, when you think about when someone is desperately lonely, what do they have to live for? You know, they start to feel, you know, and that's why I do think, again, whether it's suicide or whether it's just natural reasons for passing away, I can see it makes complete sense to me that if you have really strong connections with people and that they're quality connections, it does. You're much healthier. You're, you know, and I know you were saying, and I found that fascinating what you started saying, because I don't have any research that I have actually done on my clients, but I see it. I mean, I see it. People tell me all the time, oh my gosh, I needed this. Like, I feel so much lighter, you know, like the energy. If you're in this space, and I know from my own experience, when I was slipping into depression and I was really so lonely and isolated, and I have a phenomenal husband, right? A phenomenal husband, and he has some incredible family that are supportive. And so I had connection, you know, to some degree. And I had a couple of people that I saw, but like there was still a piece missing. I still needed that, like the women that we have in this group, and having that like ability to really truly connect on a really vulnerable level. It releases, you know, there's so much tension that we hold in our body through like the frustrations and the anxiety and the, like, again, coming back to being an entrepreneur, but even as a mom, like there's just so much that's going on in our lives, and we hold all of that inside. If we don't give ourselves the opportunity to really share it through that connection and community, and that manifests into health problems. It manifests into so many issues, right? And so I guess I don't have any like measurement that I've done on any of my clients, but I love if you want to share what you've experienced.
I will. Before we hopped on and started recording, I was talking about how after I go to our raw meetings, or if I go meet a friend for coffee, or for, you know, go for lunch or spend the day with a friend hiking or something like that, my HRV, which is heart rate variability, increases. And that is actually a measure of longevity. So for those of you who don't know what HRV is, it's the difference between your consecutive beats of your heart, or how much variability there is between those heartbeats. Let's, like, for example, you know, your heart rate is, you know, how many beats per minute you have. And let's just say, like, if you have like a very steady 1, 2, 3, 4, that's not very healthy. You want it to have variability. It might go, you know, 1, 2, 3, a little pause, 4, a little pause, 5. You know, that would be indicative of a better heart rate variability, which it basically is saying that your heart is healthy and attuned to its environment. And so that happens. And I have spoken with lots of friends who track their heart rate variability. You can track it on an Oura ring. I also have another device called a Morpheus that I use. And I actually look at those two together. And sometimes my heart rate variability is a little bit different on those, but I can see there's a big jump whenever I have social interactions. And it's actually bigger than anything else that I do. I could meditate. I could do yoga. I could do all sorts of other things that are kind of calming to my nervous system, but the community is actually what boosts it the most. So I thought that was fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting.
You want to get everyone, you know, like an Oura ring. And
I know, right? I know. They're becoming really popular now. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, you know, it can be really overwhelming. And you kind of touched on this before, being in a new situation for anybody. So what's the best way to kind of break the ice, take down the walls, and get people to be vulnerable and authentically share when they're in a new community?
It's a great question. I think my biggest tip is asking powerful questions. You know, it's phenomenal what happens when you ask someone a question, you know, and from a facilitator stance, you know, one thing that I do in the raw community, and I think, you know, as you know, a big focus is about pulling that rawness out of people and that vulnerability, like, and welcoming that into a space where normally people have a mask on. Normally people are very guarded, which makes sense. We've kind of been taught to be that way. Yeah.
Yep. Especially as women, mind your place, right? Mind your place, know your place. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Right. Like you don't want to be airing out your dirty laundry and all of that. And that's that. While yes, that to some degree, you don't want to dwell on your dirty laundry, but you do need to air out your dirty laundry. And so, it's interesting because I talk a lot about creating safe spaces, right? And what that looks like. And I think something that I see happen a lot is people telling a group of people, this is a safe space. And what's fascinating is that actually has the opposite effect. When you tell someone this is a safe space, it's like saying, trust me.
Right. Oh, exactly.
It makes you trust the person less, right? And so by saying it's a safe space doesn't make it a safe space, right? And so how you create a safe space is by asking powerful questions, right? It's by honoring, everyone in the room and ensuring that everyone gets an opportunity to actually be heard and be seen and share. And that doesn't mean in front of a group, so one thing that, again, this is coming at it from more of a facilitator stance, and you can kind of transfer this into a lot of environments, but having people write first is something that I think is an underrated tool and strategy that we need to integrate into more environments. So if you ask a question of people, give them a chance to write down an answer first, whether it's like a free write or whatever, just to get their thoughts on paper. Because if you ask a question and immediately expect a response, a lot of people, they don't know what they're going to say. So automatically there's in their mind, for a lot of women, they go into a space of judgment, right? And fear. And they're like, what am I going to say? And then someone else goes and they're like, well, they want to listen to that person talk, but then they're like, what am I going to say? So you're not allowing and encouraging a really present space. Whereas if you have them write, everyone's had a chance to get some ideas down, and then you want to encourage people to feel more comfortable to share in a larger environment. You have them share in a small group. So with a partner, just turn to someone next to you and share with them, right? So small groups, and then you branch out to bigger groups, right? It's called building relational capacity, right? We want to gradually build people up to feel more and more comfortable to share in more, it's like essentially a more threatening environment. So by asking those powerful questions, letting people write, and really practicing active listening. Again, if you want someone to open up to you, if you want to create a really safe environment, you have to be a very, very good listener, and knowing that you don't need to give them an answer. You don't need to even give them advice. Being able to hold space for someone, ask questions, and just listen, that person will leave feeling like they have, like they will feel on another level of like, it's like a euphoric feeling that you feel when someone just truly listens to you, because often that's all we need. We spend most of our days and our life in our head. And again, whether you're a mom or an entrepreneur or both, there's always this like to do. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. There's, oh my gosh, how are we going to solve this problem? Like, oh, we've got financial problems, or we've got this, or whatever it is. It stays in your head, and that again manifests into other problems if we don't get it out. So just, creating environments where people can write it down, get it out, voice it, and then move on. Like, I'm not sure.
I was so impressed. I was like you. I was so impressed at our first couple of raw meetings, because those were smaller than the ones that we have now. But just the way that you were so quickly able to foster community and really just like break down those walls. And I think the writing piece is huge, because I personally feel like when I'm put on the spot, I can't always articulate what I'm thinking the best way, but I can sure write it down. And I felt like, when you asked us to do that very first exercise, I felt like I was writing in my diary, by writing in my journal. I just wrote everything out. And then just like you said, just sharing it with one other person felt safe. It felt okay. And then, like you said, as you build on that, you can, basically build that relational trust and, feel free to express more thoughts to the community. And so that's good. It'll bring us to that next. Oh, go ahead.
One little thing about that, the best thing you can do as well is be vulnerable yourself, right? Like vulnerability breeds vulnerability. Like if you can open the door and show that it's okay to be like, crack your heart open and be like, yeah, this just happened and I'm not okay. Or I'm like going through this challenge right now. You will be blown away by how when you start to open up, what other people start sharing with you is unreal.
Absolutely. And that, I would say, that brings me to my last question, which is basically about you touched on it before too, the judgment. So many women are afraid to participate in a community, or even like if they go to it, some women I feel like are automatically, I don't want to say shut down, but they become more just afraid and fragile to share because of either being introverted or past experiences, making them less likely to engage. How do you explain to these women how should they approach this type of situation when they're feeling really afraid and vulnerable and just judged? And a lot of times you and I both know it's us judging ourselves and not other people judging us.
Yeah, I get that. And I think the big thing is exactly what you're saying, like realizing that a lot of that judgment is actually just coming from yourself. It's a projection. Like I have to remind myself of that at times, when I'm starting to feel judged or something, I think about, okay, why am I feeling that way? And okay, that's actually me. I'm judging myself because I felt insecure about how I responded or what I said right. And so be gracious and be patient with yourself, is what I would tell you, is like really giving yourself that pat on the back of knowing like it takes time. It's baby steps. Like if you do put yourself out there and you go to a, community meetup, whatever that is, whether it's raw or something else, and you go and it's uncomfortable, know that you're going to be uncomfortable. Again, that's where that growth happens, right? So know that, and that's okay. And just really, there's going to be moments where you think, oh, I should have shared this, or I could have shared that, or I probably could have opened up a little bit more, or you're going to walk away and be in your head and judge yourself for anything and everything.
Right.
Be kind to yourself. Just congratulate yourself for going and try to find something beautiful in that moment, something that you're grateful for from that experience. And it might not be what you even walked in thinking you were going to get. You might not walk away with like, man, I just found my two best friends, right? Like if that's what you wanted, but maybe you walk away going, okay, all right, I know maybe that community is not for me. Or maybe you walk, and that's okay. Like now I kind of know more about what I do want. Or maybe you walk away going, all right, I was brave and I'm patting myself on the back for being brave. Just really being kind to yourself and just reminding yourself that it's okay to be uncomfortable, breathe through that discomfort, even in that moment, right? Like if you are being vulnerable and it feels really scary, just come back to your breath and remind yourself that you are supported and you don't have to share. You really don't have, you get to choose what you share. I think sometimes people feel when they have to start being vulnerable, they think they've got to share the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to them. They've got to share, like everything, but you don't. You get to choose. And I promise you, the more you flex your courage muscle, right, is what I call it, the easier it gets. And you'll start to find like, actually, it's okay to share this. Like I feel more comfortable sharing this. And so just know that it's a process and it takes time, and continue to, give yourself love throughout the journey.
That's perfect. And that's, I always tell people just, find something like you said to be grateful for in that moment. And then also the thoughts that come into your head. A little exercise I have people do is ask yourself, is that a thought of mine or is that a thought of somebody else's? Because we're influenced, like we were saying, when we're together, we're influenced by each other's energy. And sometimes that's thoughts too. And so I'm like, is this a thought of your own or is this a thought of someone else's? And, if it's a thought of someone else's, I'm like, just boot it out of your head, kind of literally kick it out. And then if it's your own, like you said, ask yourself, why are you thinking this? If it, is it a limiting belief? Is it limiting mindset? That type of stuff. And, and that's okay. Like you said, just showing up is, showing immense courage, because it is, like I said earlier, it's so much easier to stay in the comfort of your own home. Yeah. Right? Awesome. Cara, thank you so much for being here today and all of the amazing gems that you shared with us today. There were so many. I'm going to have to go back through our interview and look at all of those amazing little gems. But if people want to find you, where should they go?
So you can join the Raw Entrepreneurs group on Facebook. So it's Real Authentic Women Entrepreneurs. You're welcome to find that and join us if you're an entrepreneur. If you're not and you just want great women, you can also come. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. And then also I'm on social media as I am Cara Kelley, and it's Kelley. So you're welcome to find me there. If you want to attend an event, you just go to thekellyeffect.com/raw events. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Cara. This was so amazing. And I think so needed for so many women out there.
Thank you so much, Deb. And I love the work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Remember, knowledge is just the beginning. Taking action is what truly sparks change. If you're overwhelmed and don't have enough energy to make it through the day, I invite you to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me. It's a no-obligation chat where we can discuss your health goals and how I might be able to help you achieve them. Visit the link in the episode description to book that call. Until next time, keep striving for wellness, and remember, you have the power to not just survive, but thrive in motherhood.